Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Lennon, and I will be your moderator today for our event, Industrial Revolution, the next chapter of Cambodia's manufacturing journey. For our agenda today, we will start off with an overview of the Asia-Pacific logistics property market from our colleague in Singapore, Troy Shortell. Unfortunately, he cannot join us today, but he sends his best regards. Following this, we will present an overview of Cambodia's emerging industrial and logistics market presented by myself. This will then be followed by an esteemed panel of guests, including Ong Sin, President of the Cambodia Logistics Association, Omatsu Hiroshi, Executive Director and CEO of Phnom Penh Special Economic Zone PLC. We will additionally have His Excellency Dr. Kalon May, Senior Advisor to the Supreme National Economic Council. And last but not least, we will have Charles Esterhoy, CEO of WorldBridge Industrial Developments. Throughout the presentation, we will have a poll that will be launched in a moment. Please answer questions and participate as much as you can. We also have a number of questions for you. We also have an opportunity for you to ask questions to the panelists, so please do not hesitate to send those questions in. We really appreciate your participation. Thank you so much. Without further ado, we will launch the Asia-Pacific Logistics Property Market Update from our colleague in Singapore, Troy Shortell.
Thank you. It's good to be here today. The past 18 months have shown up weaknesses in supply chains across the Asia-Pacific region. We've seen unpredictable and unforeseen supply shocks, such as port closures, electricity cuts, and labor shortages. There were demand shocks as well, mostly from lockdowns and retail store closures. But the period has also seen some remarkable developments in the region, particularly the unprecedented growth of e-commerce and the adoption of omni-channel approaches across diverse industry sectors. In this presentation today, I'll be providing you with an update on these developments in the logistics property market, as well as a view into emerging trends from around the Asia-Pacific region. Growing e-commerce penetration and an occupier focus on resilience have ensured that the logistics market continues to outperform all other commercial property sectors, both globally and across the region. In fact, logistics topped the list for Asia-Pacific investors for the first time ever last year, and this trend has continued through the third quarter of this year. In this environment, developers and landowners based in Asia's emerging and dynamic markets like Cambodia will continue to see more opportunities to attract international sources of capital and also to attract new tenants, many of whom are looking for partners to help address an evolving set of COVID-era concerns around rising supply chain costs, environmental impact, and access to talent. Besides private sector investment and collaboration, support from government policies, incentives, or investments will also help continue to unlock this potential for Cambodia, just as it has done so recently for other Southeast Asian countries in the area of industrial and logistics property. CBRE recently conducted a survey of logistics occupiers across the Asia-Pacific region, and the results confirmed a positive business sentiment for current and future tenants of logistics space, most of whom are planning to add to their logistics footprint in the next 3 years. With supply chain disruption set to continue for the remainder of this year, companies will need to take steps to enhance supply chain resilience, leading to even more warehouse demand. At the same time, logistics occupiers are optimistic about prospects for business growth and are planning to expand their footprint. Continued strong market sentiment will ensure occupiers remain in expansion mode. and there's a particular focus on gaining access to higher quality logistics space. At the asset level, warehouses are no longer being regarded merely as a piece of real estate, but as essential cogs in an entire supply chain and the keys to optimizing delivery in an increasingly omni-channel environment. Asian countries with a large consumer base are playing a key role in international trade are already home to a relatively large number of occupiers, with markets such as mainland China, India, Vietnam, and Japan, each reporting a penetration rate of over 30% in our most recent survey. The next phase of market expansion, therefore, will focus on emerging Southeast Asia markets. Occupiers are already planning to enter Indonesia, Thailand, and the Philippines over the next 3 years, while Vietnam has been flagged as a high potential market, as it already has a strong presence of logistics occupiers in addition to many potential future entrants. Cambodia also ranks above most countries in Asia as a market that will see more entrants over the next 3 years. In particular, several elements of occupier expansion strategies have significant implications for logistics property investors. These include the location of consumption points, facility types, and occupier transaction approaches and terms. Of all the factors occupiers consider when choosing a location for their logistics facilities, proximity to markets and customers comes out on top. Occupiers increasingly prefer to locate their logistics facilities near points of consumption to ensure they can offer short delivery times to the largest number of customers. This ability is seen as crucial in the omni-channel era when consumers value fast and reliable delivery above anything else while shopping online. Securing consumer-centric locations can also enable occupiers to enhance supply chain network resilience during crises such as the pandemic and ensure deliveries continue to be fulfilled. Other location-related factors that occupiers consider important include proximity to transportation facilities and labor availability. This indicates that occupier decision-making around location is now being driven by a need to strike a balance between business growth and costs. Property investors and developers should well understand that prime locations that serve dense populations will now always attract tenants. And as with location strategies, the main factor influencing occupiers' choices of logistics facility type is point of consumption. Facilities serving metropolitan populations are keenly sought after, and logistics facilities in satellite cities are among the most popular logistics property choices today. For example, in mainland China, JD.com and Alibaba are seeking facilities providing good connectivity to major neighborhoods, particularly for last-mile delivery stations. Occupiers plan to utilize a range of strategies to add to their logistics portfolio over the next 3 years. These include build-to-suit, partnering with developers and investors to construct new logistics assets, developing self-built facilities, and engaging in new speculative builds. Occupiers tend to prefer customized facilities, enabling them to operate efficiently and provide capacity for expansion while keeping fixed costs to a minimum. Developers are responding to these requirements by including temperature control and automation-ready capacity in speculative builds, in which customizable space is prepared for target occupier sectors, such as packaged food and pharmaceuticals. Developers are advised to supply more modern logistics facilities to accommodate this surging demand and also engage with anchor tenants as early as possible to ensure building features are suited to their requirements. In terms of emerging trends, occupiers expect the next generation of logistics facilities to incorporate a range of advanced features to support their long-term business goals. The advent of omni-channel and professional logistics provider demand has encouraged the development of high specification modern logistics facilities across Asia. These types of tenants value better storage efficiency due to the locations that have higher internal ceiling clearance, wider spans between columns, and floor quality with a higher load tolerance to support investments in automation and storage systems. Facilities must be able to cater for higher volumes in peak seasons and support complex order processing and loading tasks. Preferred next generation sites will have a greater number of dock doors than the standard warehouse today in order to accommodate the surge in delivery traffic needed to serve omni-channel demand in the future. Another and final emerging trend we are seeing has potential to become one of the most dominant. As occupiers look to strengthen their environmental, social, and governance performance, their requirements for building specifications are incorporating more green features. Increasingly, these areas of focus include green certification, energy saving, and green operations. So in summary, we're seeing positive business sentiment for current and future tenants of logistics space, most of whom are planning to add to their logistics footprint in the next 3 years. Warehouse demand remains firm, with net absorption setting new records in many countries across the region. Online retailers and professional third-party logistics firms will drive most of the demand for next-generation logistics facilities as they strengthen their last-mile and network capabilities. Logistics space near transportation hubs will continue to be keenly sought after. In terms of logistics property investment, purchasing activity will continue to be strong, and modern logistics properties are going to stay as a primary focus. More investors will commit capital into logistics development funds, and logistics capital values will continue to rise. So that's about all from me today. Thank you for listening, and now back over to CBRE Cambodia.
Thank you so much for that overview, Troy. We really appreciate your insights. Moving on, we will be launching the poll for all of the viewers to participate in. So please do answer the questions. We really appreciate having the insights that you may be able to provide. Moving on, I will be presenting an overview of Cambodia's emerging industrial and logistics market. Please also don't forget to send in questions whenever you can throughout the presentation. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Sorry, we're having some slow internet today. The presentation providing an overview of the Cambodian logistics and industrial market would be cut into 3 segments. One will be an overview of the market. The second will give an insight into what is enabling this industrial and logistics market to develop. And then finally, we'll be presenting a market outlook. When considering what we were going to talk about today, there was one statistic that really stood out, and we thought that this was a very good place to start. This basically provides an overview of where the EU imports its clothes from. In terms of imports into the EU, 4% of clothes that were imported came from Cambodia in 2020. We thought that this was a particularly interesting statistic considering the scale of the industry here. When we look at the other countries that compare in this chart, Vietnam and India have significantly larger populations. This is quite an incredible feat, all things considered, and that 4% represents 2 billion euros worth of imports into the European Union. Moving back a little bit, what this tells us about Cambodia is, number one, the textiles and garments industry represents a very significant part of our manufacturing space. Number two, I think what it tells us is the potential of what the Cambodian industrial market can achieve if the right resources and ingredients are aligned. And I think fundamentally that is what we're here to discuss today. To put the Cambodian industrial and logistics market into context, we provided a few key headlines. Like most manufacturing hubs in the region, the China-US trade war has presented quite a significant potential opportunity for the segment. As the trade war has developed, we have become the beneficiary of companies shifting their operations out of China into Cambodia. In terms of other areas of the news that are of interest to the segment, we would like to discuss infrastructure, cold chain development, and a number of other areas. Cambodia has also been very effective at developing its free trade agreements. In the past year, we've seen developments with the South Koreans and China. The Chinese free trade agreement, for instance, is coming into effect in Q1 next year. This wouldn't be a good overview of the news and headlines that relate to the industrial segment if we didn't mention the coronavirus. In 2020, the segment was heavily hit by the coronavirus due to a number of reasons, one of which came down to the fact that there was serious pressure applied to the textiles industry in terms of the supply chain. In addition to that, there was also challenges created by the overall logistics of operating a factory during the pandemic, throughout the lockdowns. And then on top of that, there was pressures created from changing in demand from export markets in the West. So this created a lot of challenges that the textiles industry had to navigate during the pandemic. More positively though, as of the 15th of November, Cambodia was able to end its quarantine for vaccinated travelers, indicating a real milestone in the progress in the fight against the coronavirus. Moving more deeply into the statistics that relate to COVID-19, due to the way in which the government has been able to tackle the COVID pandemic, we can see the cases, the new confirmed cases have dropped to around 31 per day and 4 confirmed deaths per day, which is really impressive, all things considered. And that's heavily down to the fact that the country has been able to develop and roll out its vaccination program so effectively. 78% of the Cambodian population has been fully vaccinated as of the 28th of November, which is an extremely incredible feat, all things considered. We are sharing that position with Brunei, and unsurprisingly, the #1 spot is held by Singapore. As mentioned a moment ago, the COVID-19 pandemic seriously hindered the development of the industrial and logistics space. We have not seen a downward movement in net output since the global financial crisis. And over the past 10 years, we saw an average of 10% year-on-year growth in the manufacturing value-added space. However, in 2020, we saw a negative 2.75% drop in this net output activity, illustrating how challenging it has been to navigate the storm that is the pandemic. In more positive news, due to the way in which the pandemic has been managed domestically, we're projected to see 5.5% GDP growth next year. The only other country in the region which is outdoing us is Vietnam, with a projected 6.5% GDP growth. To put things into perspective, the Thai GDP is expected to grow by 3.8% next year. In terms of exports and key industries, in H1 2021, there were $360 million worth of garments, textiles, shoes, and travel goods exported from Cambodia. As mentioned earlier, the garment industry represents a very significant portion of activity in Cambodia, representing 49% of activity. Other areas of importance relate to the footwear industry, wooden products, rubber, and rice. In terms of end markets, over 60% of these goods end up in the United States and Europe. What I think is important to think about and consider when we're looking at this key industry summary is, where is all of the agricultural development going on? Where is the processing? 25% of Cambodia's GDP roughly relates to agriculture. What we would like to see more of is processing, is added value products. And this is what we're expecting to see in the near term and the midterm, hopefully. In terms of the reasoning why so many manufacturers are starting to consider moving to Cambodia, number one, I would say on that list is very much due to the stability that Cambodia presents. It's an extremely stable location. Number two is definitely the cost base. Labor in Cambodia is extremely competitive when it comes to the minimum wage for manufacturing workers. If you look at Cambodia in comparison to Vietnam and Thailand, we're still extremely competitive. We also maintain a very young workforce. The average age of the Cambodian population is 27. Of this 10.3 million working age population, quite a significant chunk is actually allocated to the garment industry. This is estimated to be around 800,000 workers in the country. In terms of construction costs as well, we are also fairly competitive. There are some challenges when it comes to the cost of manufacturing goods and materials here in Cambodia, because a large proportion of them have to be imported, which adds around 10 to 20% to the average cost per square meter. Having said that, because our labor cost is so low, this tends to balance out fairly effectively. In terms of the price of land, a 50-year land lease is still very competitive by regional standards. On average, the price per square meter of a 50-year land lease is around $63 per square meter. This ranges up to $90 per square meter to a low point of around $20 per square meter, depending on the location. This is extremely competitive, again, when we look compared to the region, where Vietnam and Thailand may present quite significantly higher prices per square meter for long-term leases for land. Equally, ready-built factory rental rates are maintaining fairly competitive rates with an average of around $3 per square meter. This is certainly comparable to Vietnam, and that makes things very good from a comparative perspective. In terms of the overall supply of special economic zones, there are currently 54 approved special economic zones in Cambodia. However, of those, only 26 are fully operational. This is relatively small in comparison to our neighbors. If we look at Vietnam, they have approximately 390 industrial parks, which effectively have similar parameters and government support. On the flip side, when we look to Thailand, they have around 82 special economic zones or industrial parks that present equal opportunities to people, for manufacturers to come in and compete. Having said that, what's important for us to really focus on is quality, not quantity. And this is really where having the right industrial development policies in place really has an impact. The next section of this webinar relates to enabling the ecosystem. So what sort of elements are needed or currently in place that will allow Cambodia's industrial and logistics space to take off? When looking at Cambodia, it's important to consider the fact that we are part of a wider Mekong sub-region economic corridor. When we are considering this, what we need to think about is a number of things. Number one, how do we integrate in the region and how do we complement our neighbors? Can we find areas in which we can compete, or can we find areas that will allow us to find synergy with our manufacturing neighbors in Thailand and Vietnam in particular? On top of this, we need to consider how the infrastructure can be integrated into our neighbors to further minimize costs of trade facilitation. Cambodia has done quite a good job of developing this infrastructure with 7 expressways earmarked for development, one of which is under construction. This is the Sihanoukville-Phnom Penh highway, which is expected to be completed in 2022. This will massively reduce the travel time from Phnom Penh to the port in Sihanoukville. We also have an additional 4 airports which are earmarked to be developed, 3 of which are currently under construction, one of which is a very large-scale airport to the south of Phnom Penh, which will certainly help the development of the logistics industry. In addition to this, we have a deep sea port terminal, which is under construction in Sihanoukville. In addition to the physical infrastructure that is being developed, we're also seeing Cambodian government stepping up and entering into a large number of free trade agreements. Most noteworthy are the Cambodian-Korea Free Trade Agreement and the Cambodia-China Free Trade Agreement. In particular, Cambodia-China Free Trade Agreement is coming into play in Q1 2022. These frameworks are extremely important to help trade facilitation and make Cambodia a more competitive and attractive place to come and operate your business. In terms of other legislation which has been launched in the near term, this is from the Law on Investment, which indicates the government's priority sectors. There are 5 key areas that the government is trying to promote. The first is new industries such as machinery assembly, electric equipment assembly, and natural resource processing. The second is the small to medium sized enterprises in all sectors. This is particularly interesting and raises lots of questions in terms of what sort of infrastructure, what sort of buildings, what sort of zones would be required to really help develop this segment. The third, which I've mentioned earlier, is of high importance to Cambodia, considering the size of the agricultural segment at present. This is the agro-industrial production, both for export use and domestic use. And I think this is literally and figuratively low-hanging fruit that the country really needs to consider how it can take better advantage of. And it's very important and positive to see this legislation being put in place. Finally, second to last is the various and supporting industries, as mentioned again, agriculture, tourism, and the textiles sectors. And finally, the industries of the future of strategic importance. So this is things like ICT, energy, heavy industries. These are also highly important and raise questions about what sort of infrastructure we require to develop these things. Is it improving the internet capabilities of the country to support Industry 4.0, or is it developing better resources like electricity, which is something we haven't necessarily discussed today, but is an extremely important component of the manufacturing process. Finally, we will discuss some elements of the market outlook. There are certain elements of the market which are almost inevitable in terms of where we are heading to as a country. Things like e-commerce. There are incredible statistics, like 59% of all Cambodians partake in electronic transfers on a regular basis. This comes into things like F&B purchases. It also comes down to fintech. I've been very impressed so far by observing the fintech market here in Cambodia and how advanced it has progressed in such a short period of time. The second, of course, is the agro-industrial area, which is definitely inevitable. And we're very much hoping that we can see some big changes taking place in this segment. When it comes down to efficiency, we only need to make small changes in the process to make very large developments when it comes to productivity. The next is the rise of assembly. In 2022, we're already seeing the entry of the automotive RMA factory, which will be developing or assembling Ford motor cars domestically. The overall aim of this is to produce around 10,000 units per year, which is a very impressive feat. Number 4 is we're expecting a definite increase in the sophistication of the logistics and cold storage framework. This is already something that we're seeing on the ground. When I walk around Phnom Penh, I'm noticing small warehouses popping up to facilitate the e-commerce growth that I mentioned earlier. In addition to this, we're certainly seeing the development of cold chain. We're very fortunate in Cambodia in many ways for the fact that the cold chain that we are developing is adopting modern technology. And because of this, we are almost leapfrogging certain phases of this development process. I took a tour around a cold chain around 3 months ago, and I was very impressed with the quality of the facility. Number 6, in terms of likely developments in the market, or almost certain developments in the market, is data centers. With all of this technological development taking place, it's likely that we will see some changes and developments taking place in the data center space. The last 3 elements, 7, 8, and 9, are areas that we would like to see and we would hope to see and have actually some potential of happening. We're hoping to see some rise in the ESD space within the manufacturing and logistics market. This includes things like sustainable eco-parks, and it also includes things like better water processing for textiles, for the textiles dyeing process. There are a number of areas that could easily be improved through the introduction of very effective guidelines and development processes. Another area that could be very advantageous to Cambodia's manufacturing space is the rise of automation. Cambodia has a relatively small population by comparison to its neighbors, and it could use this to some advantage, or it could take advantage of automation, and it could find some areas or niches in this area. And then finally, so famously, Vietnam had its Samsung moment in the north of the country in its manufacturing space. What could be potentially happening in Cambodia is, due to our very close relationship with China, it's potential that we may see the country having some sort of Huawei moment, where through a government-to-government policy, we see the development of more high-tech developments or high-tech manufacturing should this opportunity arise. In terms of a summary of where we are going and what is going on in the market, we're very pleased to see the government moving ahead with removing the quarantine and reopening tourism. This is a very healthy move, which will hopefully allow businesses to start operating more freely again. We're also witnessing, as mentioned earlier, significant rise in the support of FDI through legislative tools like the Law on Investment. And we are cautiously optimistic for Q1 2022 with all of these positive changes taking place, notwithstanding the potential for unusual variants developing in other countries, which we're very much hoping will not impact things too much. In terms of the market more directly, the China Plus One continues to unfold, and we hope that we will continue to be the beneficiary of this development. We're likely to see continuing improvements to infrastructure, which is in no doubt going to be highly beneficial to both the manufacturing and logistics space. Undoubtedly, these inevitable trends will also continue to unfold as Cambodia rapidly adopts new technology. These will include data centers, cold chain storage, logistics, and increased integration into the region, which I see as particularly exciting when it comes to finding opportunities for synergy within the regional manufacturing space. And finally, in a best case scenario, we would love to see more activity in the ESG, automation, and potentially more movement in the space towards technological advancement. We will now move on to our panel discussion. Panelists, are you ready?
Yes,
I think so.
good morning. Yep.
Thank you very much, Hiroshi, and thank you very much to Your Excellency, Dr. Kalon, for joining us, and thank you to Charles. We really appreciate your time. You have each got a small segment to introduce yourself, so I will give the microphone to Hiroshi Umetsu, the CEO and Executive Director of Phnom Penh Special Economic Zone, PLC.
Good morning. My name is Hiroshi Uematsu, CEO of Phnom Penh SEZ Public Limited Company. I have been working for Phnom Penh SEZ for almost 15 years. We have now 100 investors from Japan, China, USA, Thailand, Vietnam, Malaysia, Philippines, and so on. We also have varieties of industries like electric and electronics, automobile parts, food and beverage, plastic products, diamond polish, garment, and so on. For us, diversity of nationality and industry is very important value. Thank you very much for having me in this webinar.
Your Excellency, please take a moment to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Laurent. I think Laurent's presentation covered most important thing already. I mean, you left the panelists to have nothing to talk about.
I apologize.
I am May Kalon. I am senior advisor to the Supreme National Economic Council, in short, ECOLISME. For people who do not know, this is like a think tank to the Prime Minister, the think tank direct to the Prime Minister. I've been there for 10 years now. At the same time, I'm also chairman of the biggest university in Cambodia called Royal University of Phnom Penh, or RUPP, with 20,000 students involved, and also senior advisor to CBRE, Cambodian Resource Development Institutes, and chairman of other places like agro processing. You mentioned about 10 places. I could not mention all, but one of the things I'd like to mention is that also chairman of CJDM, maybe new to you, please take note. This is Cambodia, Japan Digital Manufacturing Center and IUPP. This is a spearhead for Industry 4.0. I'm happy to join all of you today. Thank you very much.
Charles, please take a moment to introduce yourself.
Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Charles Esterhoy. I'm the CEO of WorldBridge Industrial Developments, which is one subsidiary of the WorldBridge group of companies here in Cambodia. I've been in Cambodia for the last 6 years after a long journey throughout Asia. The past COO worked with Uematsu-san for a while there, also past chairman of AmCham. But for the last 3 years, I've been developing and bringing to reality a German 4.0 concepted SME cluster and ecosystem project. This will provide a new approach and opportunities for manufacturing and investment in Cambodia. Currently, our first cluster is in construction and due to complete phase 1 facilities and infrastructure in December, and aiming for a launch or opening in March 2022. So that's what I've been up to.
Thank you so much, Charles. Appreciate the introduction. We are also joined by Ong Sin from the Cambodia Logistics Association. Please, Ong, take a moment to introduce yourself.
Yes, very good mornings, Lawrence, Your Excellency, Koreans, Joyce, Hiroshi, and also Charles. Yeah, and also all participants. Good morning. Xin chào Thi. Actually, my company is Lennon Express Cambodia. My business is logistics and forwarders. Also, my company provides the e-commerce shipment we call Express. So, and also I am the president of Cambodia Logistics Association. Yeah. Now our member in association is a more than 100 company, which is we got about 10% is international logistic company from the overseas, and the part is a joint venture and also the local company. They they provide all the logistic providers such as the by sea freight, air freight, also the trucking and custom broker, custom clearance, and all prepare for import and export, and warehouse, also the trucking. Yes.
Understood.
Okay, and I am also the member of advisory to the Cambodia Chamber of Commerce, and we are also in the logistic advisory board with Child understood about we always join together to advise to the Ministry of Public and Transport based on the logistic whatever in the logistic provider. Thank you very much. This the short introduce myself. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ong Sin. I will direct the first question today to His Excellency Dr. Kalon May. Obviously, the COVID-19 outbreak has been an ongoing disruption for all of our lives and the economy. From your work, what impact have you seen from manufacturers and logistics operators, and how have stakeholders navigated this storm?
To be honestly, I do not run day-to-day operation of any industries, so I look at things from about. So in general, it's conceptual thinking. 2020 at a big conference organized by Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I coined a word which seemed to be popular. I say, no life, no economy. When you are dying, no need to talk about economy. But no economy, hard life. This is the two sides of the COVID and economic problem that I coined. The saying I think is very true until now. For me, I mean, as everyone knows, the disruption of COVID is everywhere. Not Cambodia, not exception, everywhere, as you mentioned in your presentation as well. But depend on the sectors, some are more, some are less. This is normal. And particularly, I'm concerned about the disruption because I don't know much about the industry because I do not run, but I look more closely at more important thing in our life to protect our life first, life. At time of crisis, you could not think too much to be rich. You have to protect your life first. So the first thing I was thinking is about agriculture, like you mentioned about. I wholeheartedly support your idea about the need for agro-processing and so on. Yes, these weaknesses in the food supply chain. So it's a food security problem. I think it's a very serious one. But luckily, Cambodia is an agriculture country. We are rather rich in resources, so that helps. But the weakness is like you mentioned, I saw in mango sectors and other food sectors, you know, because of the value chain system is not developed, all the fruits just drop under the trees without treatment and so on. If we have a modern system, like you mentioned, a flow, I think it's automatic flow somehow, not as 100% as we expected, but at least something that would flow to other countries. I give you two examples. We have two products that exported to China recently. One is banana, another one is mango. Banana is more structured. We have collection, we have warehouse, we have logistics, we have port, we have export to China, quite, orderly happening, not 100%, but it's happened. Whereas mango is all over the place. The fruit is under the trees because there's no logistic, no preparation. So I think this is important way to do. I myself with friend, we organize a company trying to push for that privately, but it's just starting to move. But talking about negative aspect, but there are also some positive aspect about COVID that people could not see. I could see that because I'm inside the government channel. When the COVID start, I'm talking about institution response to COVID, because you have so many Ministry of Education, Ministry of Health, localities, provinces, so on, so many involved. So when things happen like this, COVID happened like this, it is like a war. So you have to have one commander to organize all of this. So when it starts first, it's really difficult to handle this because it's technical. Is it technical? Is it money? Is it security? Is it what? All the questions arise. For example, when you want to buy vaccine, easily to say, but okay, where money come from? Who do injection? How to organize? It's complicated operation. But thanks to God, over time, I saw the government ministries working very well, effectively. So even now, Omicron, you call Omicron, I'm not so worried so much as before because we have a strong institution to respond to any crisis that might happen. So in short, COVID present bad and good, but a lesson for us as well. So not only bad, but also good. I think the good one could be a heritage for Cambodia for a long future to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you for such an extensive answer, Your Excellency. Would I be able to direct the same question to Hiroshi Uematsu, CEO of PPSEZ?
Yeah, thank you. This year, it's true that it was the toughest time for us. So during this critical time until October, there were 1,287 positive cases reported inside Phnom Penh CZ, and 9 factories had to suspend their operation due to the outbreak. But luckily, no serious symptom, no death case were found inside the zone. This is owing to the government strong support, as Dr. Karia explained, to prioritize industrial sector in Phnom Penh, especially to our zone, to massively vaccinate over 30,000 population. At that time, the government staff told us, don't care nationality, anyone can come to vaccinate with free. Then if your factory has, logistics company and construction company to deal, they are also invited. So because of this, we can say that we are able to minimize that negative impact to our zone. As a result, this year, the employees working inside the zone actually increased to 32,000 from 26,000 last year, December. Yeah. Then the export value is expected to reach 670 million US dollar, which is around 9% increase from last year. So, well, we can say we are very lucky compared with other neighboring countries. Yeah, then later I'll talk more. Some factory actually expanding this year. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Umetsu-san. We appreciate your input. Oknia Chanti-sin, could you please let us know your opinion on the law on investment and how it may impact the development of the logistics industry here in Cambodia?
Yes, thank you very much, Lawrence. Okay, yeah, for the logistic size, I think as long as Cambodia as other country also had also feel the impacts of the COVID pandemic. We did close some factory and also the face lockdown in some areas. I think since the 2020, the year 2020, but our government of Cambodia also successfully launched the first massive inoculation campaigns to protect all the workers on that time. And also we remain our export figure that reflects with about 11.4% growth from the January up to September in this year, 2021. In this case, also Cambodia logistic company, we are facing the issue that we feel the impacts since the year 2020. I think around March, April last year, with the global slowdown and some area lockdown, our logistic industry is facing the problem, such as we have about on that time about only about 10% of the company they can remains moving the activity, but the other about 60% of the company they are trimming. You know, some they cut down the service, some they are prepared to the trimming to cut down, and about 30% of company we are some company is had to cut down the staff, and also they going to bankrupt. But up to now, all the company they are pick up again. You know, they can moving on.
Understood.
By today, about more than 90% already they are operating normally. Just a few companies this year prepares the service, and also the major of our member they can recovering as an important export and starts the service again to be normal up to
Very
now.
positive.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much for your answer, Oknia Chanti-sin.
Yeah.
My next question will be directed at Charles Esterhoy. The conversation on Industry 4.0 has been ongoing around the world for some time now. What do you think the fourth industrial revolution means for Cambodia? What sort of opportunities and challenges are present here?
Good question, Lawrence. Thank you. Obviously, as I mentioned, we're developing was one of the first 4.0 concepted SME clusters here in Cambodia. So we began our journey in the 4.0 journey 3-4 years ago and have been developing that ever since. So obviously we feel that the opportunities here in Cambodia are very good. Granted, there are challenges, but in our opinion, and we've developed this, is Cambodia has the basic, we'll say, assets, particularly in terms of a young demographic, a digitally native demographic, what I also call a clean slate, meaning there's no legacy of industry 3.0 and automation, things like that. So moving to a 4.0 environment is a very good opportunity and highly likely feasible here in Cambodia. But we need to, be very clear that it is a German 4.0 approach, not just the automation, which many people may think of Industry 4.0 as being. It's more about the creating of ecosystems and the creation of value chains from end to end. So the manufacturing, or from product development, from academia to product development to manufacturing to the consumer, and all the services and supporting stakeholders along the way, is a value chain. So when you're manufacturers are not just adopting 4.0, you have to create and enable complete value chains to be effective in order to be competitive globally. The term that's used is not competition or competitiveness, it's called co-opetitiveness. In Cambodia or anywhere around the world in developing nations, one SME standing alone and trying to break into a global market is very, very difficult. But a complete value chain with 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 participants or stakeholders in that value chain working together and linked using digital technologies of the internet, they can be competitive. And in fact, if you turn it the other way around, FDI investment, they're looking for that type of, we'll say, 4.0 knowledgeable or seamless environment in order to invest in or work.
We have limited time, so I can see His Excellency Dr. Kalon has his hand up. Do you have a question or any answer to this question, Doctor?
It's not a question and answer. I'd like to make statement. The reason that I come to this forum because I like to share some view concretely on this, because Industry 4.0 is a government policy. We could not only ask private sector or foreigner to talk on our behalf, we have to talk ourselves because this is a government policies. In general, this is a government policies. We have to move forward with that line. There's no question about that. And next week also, I was invited to not to chair, but to moderate a session of ADB, UN, and government organized seminar on Industry 4.0 as well. So this is the big stuff that we have to move forward. I normally have sorry, a bit long, but let me explain, because this is a position of the government as well as what I'm doing, what I have in my heart, that we have to think big. Industry 4.0, start small, move fast. We could not just think big, and stop there. We have to think big, start small, and move fast. As I was saying, it's not a government alone, it's not academia alone, private sector alone could do this big stuff. It's a complicated process. So I follow the Japanese theory called Sankangaku, or triple helix, meaning private sectors, government, and academia had to work together. We had to start from somewhere. If not, we keep talking. I hear we keep talking about this for years now. So what's happening? It's still talking, it's still on the papers. So this is, we have to move from talking to action. I congratulate Charles for his activities from a private sector point of view. I'd like to share one example that I myself lead the activities as the chairman of Royal University of Phnom Penh, RUPP. We call it CJDM, Cambodian Japan Digitalized Manufacturing Centers. So whatever we do, we need human resources. We need people, we need engineers, we need scientists, we need technologies. Nothing drop from the sky, right? So do we ask ourselves, do we have these people? No, we don't have. It's like chicken and eggs. University produce people, but there's no demand. So what's happening? It's always a problem, right? So chicken and egg. It's a good concept. It's like a dream, but how do we apply? So I go back to my idea about think big, start small, and move fast. We start to collaborate with a company called DMG Mori, a joint venture between Japan and Germany. When we start, we are really empty-handed. We have nothing. We just started. We have committed. We want to educate people because my university is integrated university. We have science, faculty of science, and faculty of engineering. We talk a lot about digital, but digital alone is not industry 4.0. Digital alone is only e-commerce, is only pass up, is only Panda type thing, is okay, or exchange money, fintech, and so it's fine with that. But the moment you talk about industry 4.0, you have to link digital and manufacturing, two things. Digital and manufacturing, two things. So digital alone is quite okay. You have computer, you have internet, so on. Maybe you manage to do something, but manufacturing to link the dot is a difficult one. So when we start, we start talking since 2020. We start with a strong commitment, and then a course. We train 30 students already. From the university in Phnom Penh, who we open to any student who has capabilities to get it because it's complicated. When we start, we don't know even what is industry 4.0. Where do we start? We don't know. So we start to have, because DMG Mori is a German and Japanese company, two strong manufacturing country in the world. We got curriculum from Germany, DMG Mori Academy. It is a German expert who teach us directly from Germany. So in fact, because of COVID, it's allowed us to do things online. And even computer, we don't have money to buy computer because we need a bit stronger computer to get the training. So this is, we also get the support from Japanese government to buy computer. So now we have 30 people graduate with a good score. We do not go into any assessment. We leave solely to the German and the Japanese to do assessment of this. So we have 30 people, but we have 3 stages. The first stage is only theory on computer only. But now we start a second stage, we move on. We use virtual realities to train people based on concept 3D on computer first. So from theory to virtual reality to see the machines. Next year, by mid of next year, we expect to receive real machine that is supported by Japanese government. That's what we call CJDM, Cambodian Japan Digitalized Manufacturing, digital and manufacturing together. We will receive 5 million equipment, state-of-the-art equipment from Japan by mid of next year. So that's how we will proceed to training ourselves. So bit by bit, like I tell you, we from theory to virtual reality. So step by step, we work toward this process. At the same time, as I mentioned to you, private sectors, government, and academia, this is a concept. So we link directly with the company in Mr. Uematsu Phnom Penh SEZ already, like a big company like Denso and Mini Bear. So we have internship with them. We collaborate with them. Sometimes we ask their wisdom to share with our students. So this is how we proceed. And we plan to send our teachers, leaders, to get training in Japan, hands-on training in Japan about how to handle machine and so on. It's a complicated business. It's not easy, but we will moving forward step by step. As I mentioned to you, we think big, we start small, we move fast. So this is the foundation we are think of. Without human resources, without engineer, no way. So these technologies apply to anything in our manufacturing futures. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your insight. Such an innovative program. It's really inspiring to hear that these things are going on. My next question will be directed at Hiroshi and Charles. Do you think is the biggest challenge currently that the manufacturing space in Cambodia currently faces? I'll let Hiroshi go first.
Thank you very much. The biggest challenge in Cambodia, for me, well, the first, the Cambodia has a small population.
We can rephrase it to saying the biggest challenge and opportunity, if that's a better way of talking about things.
The Cambodia has a small population compared with Thailand and Vietnam. So Cambodia cannot afford to continue to provide labor for decades. That's why the industry 4.0 will be very critical. Then, yeah, as Dr. Karia mentioned, luckily we have already Minevia. You may not be familiar with these two Japanese companies because they do B2B business, but Denso is actually car automobile components manufacturers in the world. Originally, it was under Toyota, but they provide high-tech parts to many kinds of car makers. Then Minevia made an investment in Cambodia, and they want to further expand, and they just started from assembly by importing parts. In their third factory, they already brought the plastic molding and the casting machines. And, I'm sure they will go further. So for me, well, I'm not an engineer, so but actually we have these two Japanese companies. So we coordinate with the RUPP to develop human resources. Yeah,
Brilliant.
thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Hiroshi. Charles, you're up now. Please let us know your thoughts.
Okay, it's a good question. What are the biggest challenges for Cambodia? How, as May Kalon said, how Cambodia moves intelligently towards a 4.0 environment, towards a 4.0 global environment and economic environment. How it moves, at what pace, with what steps, and with what focus, I think is Cambodia's biggest challenge right now. We look at the situation in the world today. People talk about a post-COVID normal. In reality, for global manufacturing consumers, there's really three new normals that global manufacturing and countries such as Cambodia will have to face. So how those three new normals are addressed will be, I would say, a key point a key challenge, and looking at it the other way, a key opportunity for Cambodia. Right? So as I said earlier, Cambodia has a clean slate, a whiteboard, so you can do things anew, differently. As May Kalon said, think big, start small, think big, right? And that's I think the biggest opportunity or the best strategy for Cambodia to adopt. That is going to include not just the facilities and policy, which steps are being taken, but also need to look at the type of infrastructure and the policies which surround infrastructure and supporting value chains. So, obviously there's always been discussion about electricity and the high cost and the instability of the supply, but steps are being taken to change that thinking, albeit not as quite as fast as the private sector would like. But those steps need to be taken, continued, let's put it that way, and the more we can push in light of the need or the urgency to address the 3 new normals and a global 4.0 environment. I think that's, as I said, not just the challenge, but also the opportunity for Cambodia to leapfrog ahead of Vietnam and Thailand. And as I said earlier, I think Cambodia has the natural assets, meaning a clean slate, a young demographic, a digitally native demographic, and a very, we'll say, exciting entrepreneurial spirit. So I think those are Cambodia's, I'm going to focus more on the opportunities rather than say challenges. So.
Of course. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Charles. We really appreciate your thoughts on the subject. I can see Ong Sin has been very patient. He's had his hand up for a while now. So I will use this opportunity to ask one of the questions the audience has sent over. I'll reword it slightly. Where do you think the cost of logistics is going to go in 2022? Do we see things are going to go up as there are pressures on the supply chain, or do we see things are going down as the infrastructure improves? And then please take the floor and let us know your thoughts.
Okay, thanks again, Lawrence. Okay, just a moment. I listened to His Excellency May Kalon, very deep concentration and good hearings about the human resource capacity building. Thank you, Excellency. And also come back to our logistic sector. So I want to share the Logistic Association. We have stepped up to IR 4.0 also. Actually, our association very deeply, and also the very big obligation that the association will provide to our member also, even if to our client also, that who is concerning around the logistics user. Okay, so we have also the training course that we start up since the 2009 up to now. We have the complete the certificate to our student, about more than 5,000 people already, include the member and also non-member. We have a 15 what they call the lecturers, that mean the teachers who is have a study in the ASEAN, also in FIATA. That means the association in the ASEAN, also, and Mekong Institute, that and support by the FIATA and AFA, also what they call a Federation of ASEAN. Yeah. So right now we have the very good model from the ASEAN Logistics Institute that also we conduct in Cambodia now. We have the more module to have in the training course, especially for the smart logistics. Also, we provide right now in the call, even if within the COVID-19 pandemics, but we provide by the online training, also the cold chains, supply chain, and also the risk management cost. Okay, up to now, we not just only our members, but we have already MOUs with the ministry, the institute, sometimes the Joe Institute in Ministry of Public Works and Transport. We have MOU, and also we have the class, and we would have another MOU with the Ministry of Commerce. But as long as with the Ministry of Commerce, we have conduct more course already between, you know, the officer from the Ministry of Commerce and also from the student from the logistic company. So, and the other more very interesting to our training course. That's one is we will step up to the IR 4.0 already in the logistic field, you know, just according to the time. So I say only a short idea. Thank you, Warren.
Thank you, Oknia Jantisin. We really appreciate your thoughts. Your Excellency, Dr. Kalon May, you showed some interest earlier on in the agricultural sector. We'd love to hear your thoughts on how we may, number one, improve that. And if you can add, it would be interesting to hear your thoughts on how the law on investment may help enhance this industry. Please give us your thoughts.
Agriculture or law?
It's a very broad question, I understand. Let's focus on the agricultural segment. I think this is...
let me go from law first, sorry, Lauren.
Okay, no problem, please.
I understand from the people involved in the law, they are so confident that this law is better than before. That's why they do it. They are more clearer. They are more, so many elements about incentives, of improvement, clarity, and kind of very focusing on policy objective, very specific. They are confident. I think agro-processing is one of the areas that they focus on also. I think in general law is much better than before, but I think law is law. But economic actors have to do something about it, right? So Cambodia in general, in my view, is law. It's could discuss, but we need actor to make this happen. If do not happen along the law that we want, we could discuss, we could find way, you know, to work together. Important is a lack of actor. I normally classify my thinking into 3 levels: macro level, meso level, and micro level. We have maybe emphasized too much on macro level, but the action, it's in meso level, and meso level the action, but that is lacking. That is lacking. I think this is the first thing is lacking. And another one's lacking, I think also that, as I mentioned, the coordination, the close collaboration between 3 actors, as I mentioned, private sectors, government, and academia have to go together all the time and spearhead something, do something practical. And if it has some problem with policies, we always could discuss with the government to consider, to discuss. Now we talk about high level, and get stuck there, right? Without action. So I think if any industry 4.0 or logistic, anything, have to have these 3 elements together and spearhead. For example, you could talk about potential, you talk about issue the whole day, but you know, and what? And what to do. Important is, okay, based on discussion, and we have to have an action plan to follow a certain course and to start from small scale. As I mentioned, we have a think big, we have a think big already, but start from something small scale and follow the action. Otherwise, if we just talk, no actions. So I think that it's also agriculture the same. Agriculture. I used to work in the UN for 20 years in Rome, called FAO as economist, senior economist. FAO, so agriculture is my heart, but also development, also economy, also logistics, everything as well. So you touch a point about processing is fully agree, but it's chicken and eggs again. We could not focus only on agro processing if the supply is not stable. The supply raw material is not stable. I heard a few years back, one company from Japan, the biggest gasoline company, they try to do ethanol in Cambodia. They're looking to do something like ethanol production in Cambodia, but the supply of cassava had to be stable. This is, again, the same whole value chain had to be developed. So I think we could not develop in isolation, had to link with the whole value chain in order to have a systematic flow, link with regional, link with whatever. It had to have a flow. Is it enough?
As usual, it's more than enough from you. Thank you for such an interesting answer. I will pass the next question over to Charles because I suspect His Excellency picked up on a few things which I know are very close to your heart in terms of small to medium-sized enterprise. That was my interpretation of some of his answer. It'd be interesting to hear from your perspective what may be acting as a barrier to these small and medium-sized enterprises, whether it's access to finance or the right sort of ecosystem being in place.
Oh boy, we could go on for hours on that one. Yeah, it's not just SMEs, okay? We need to look at the steps before that. We need to look at, I would say, entrepreneurs and startups. And before that, we need to look at students graduating high school, some going into business, some going into universities. Those are the seeds of Cambodia's sustainable economic growth and development. So not just removing the immediate barriers to SMEs that exist today, but also remove barriers for entrepreneurs, startups, and others entering into global economics. Yeah, I mean, as May Kalon said, talk, okay? Everyone in Cambodia, SMEs are absolutely sick and tired of that. Time for action, okay? So, yeah, barriers exist. Now we have to remove them. I'm not going to do a self-plug here, but our cluster project is concepted on building an ecosystem which removes the barriers, right? And provides the access that SMEs, startups need for sustainable growth, right? So, we talk about they need access to finance or they can't access finance. Well, address the root problem. Deal with the problem of financial literacy. Teach them, educate how to put together a business plan. Come into a cluster or come into an ecosystem where collateral is through a lease agreement, okay? Introduce angel investors, introduce low-cost financing, which is something that WorldBridge is now looking at. So all of a sudden that financing problem is removed. High cost of electricity, solar, okay, and use an energy management system to create a hybrid solution that we're not reducing the cost of EDC power, we're reducing the average cost of power, and it's reliable. So private sector takes the steps to remove those barriers. And like I said, we're doing it through an ecosystem. But as we said, the time for talk is long past. We're taking the first steps. As I said, we'll be opening early next year. And we've got very many interested tenants, manufacturers, foreign manufacturing as well, already looking because they feel this, I want to say, a 4.0 approach, 4.0 ecosystem is what they need and what they will need to deal with the 3 new normals that they face. So, yeah, don't talk about removing barriers, remove them.
Yeah, interesting answers. Thank you very much, Charles. We have around 5 minutes remaining, just so you know. I would say this is one of the last questions, unless anything comes in from the audience. I'll aim this at Hiroshi. There seems to be a bit of an ongoing theme in terms of education, training, and capacity building, at least from some of the dialogue from Ong Sin, His Excellency Dr. Kalon May, and Charles Esterhoy himself. I would be interested to hear what you're aware of that some of the tenants in Phnom Penh Special Economic Zone are doing to help build the capacity of their teams. If you have any input on this, it would be very interesting.
Well, as far as we observed, our tenant factories were already 1 decade past. Well, I can say that the Cambodian workers in the factories are very much trainable. So the productivity of our tenant factories has been impressively increasing. Always we talk about Nebia or Tensos. Well, semi-wiring system, they make a wire harness for the Toyota motor. When they came to Cambodia 6 to 7 years ago, they had a difficult time at the beginning because the wire harness is very complicated. So, however, now the productivity is as high as neighboring countries. That's why they have been expanding. Now the workers are 4,000. Then they will further expand. They made a decision in this COVID time to make the double size of the factory. So for the workers, I'm not worried at all. So next is the engineers. So what our tenant factory has been doing is they bring experts from Japan, where from Japan it's more expensive. That's why they bring from Thailand, Malaysia, China, because they have already engineers all over the world. Then they train the Cambodian engineers. But to train the good engineers, as Dr. Karian mentioned, that we need to collaborate with educational institute. So actually that's what our tenant factory have been doing for years. Yeah.
Great.
So, well, I'm not worried much. Yeah, because the Cambodian, people are very motivated, eager to learn many things. So, so it's fine. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much for your insight. We are coming very close to the end of the session. So I will go around each panelist now and ask for a 30-second snapshot and what they would like to say, if they have any final words. I will start with His Excellency as he has his hand up.
Yes, I'm always volunteer to talk, but not too long. Because I was in Italy 20 years, so it's a provocation thinking. No, basically, I want to share with you one idea that only Cambodian Khmer people understand, maybe foreigner people would not understand. And then we Khmer people do not express, so I can express clearly that we talk so far about policies, about this issue, about energy, about all logistics, all the stuff. It's all tangible thing. All tangible thing. At my age, I go into spiritual thing a bit. So I think that Cambodia, we still need to improve our people moralities, soft skill, morality and soft skill, to be truthful, not cheating, working hard, working on time, productivities, commitment, kind of thing like that, these mentalities. Because I was in Japan 15 years, I understand these mentalities. So we tend to overlook this. We're just talking about the number of people. We're just talking about how many hours they work. We tend to be talking about the number that do not think about the quality of the people. So this morality issue, and then I look at my universities, one professor teach based on French textbook, another one on US textbook, another one on Japanese textbook like me. So we have our Buddhism, which is very profound, embedded into our societies. So there's just some new thought about how to reviving this concept, but renaissance in Cambodia, in order to activate the morality of Cambodian people so that they could work better, they will be happy in their life. Sorry, I speak like a monk, but just to let you know, if anybody interested in this domain, I'm more than happy to share. Now it's supported by the government, supported by Senate, and to be soon supported by the Parliament, and is already supported by the Hmong institutions. So it is a new idea that we have to promote these activities as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Opnia Chanti Sin, if you have any final words, we'd really appreciate to hear your comments.
Yes, thank you, Lawrence. Yeah, I also interested to Dr. Excellency Kalyan against what I want to talk. Also, he already talked about that. That means we want to all the people, especially for young generation who is in operates in Cambodia just now. We make the clear and clean in mind, to develop and catch up what the new is like we mentioned earlier, that's our panelists mentioned already about IR 4.0. That's one is our futures. Also the government also very very endeavor to catch up and step on this generation. So once again, that even if Logistics Association, I myself also in our board of director in the association, we have established the class since, like I mentioned, since the 2009 up to now. Now we upgrade to the the diploma class. And then I want to call on our in the logistics field also, and even if outside the logistics field also, we come to join us with the human resource capacity building to be improved, because of logistic cost is not only the logistic field, but very important for all the business, especially for international trading. I give you the just 2 points only, that you are also produce the thing for selling also. You have to thinking about logistic costs, as we research that if we produce the agriculture and anything, of course, about 15%, 15% is a logistic cost, and if the industry products, you have to think about 31% is your cost in your product. So you don't forget it. Besides of the tax, you don't forget it. So you must understand and catch up what the logistic. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Opnia Chanti Sin. We appreciate your thoughts. Charles, do you have any final comments?
Not much. Let's say, I think Cambodia is in a very unique circumstances here, with a lot of potential both regionally and globally. Once again, how Cambodia, how the government, how the private sector, how academia move intelligently towards a 4.0 environment is going to be a very important or a key factor in all of this. If Cambodia can successfully adopt a 4.0 mindset, then the opportunities for foreign investment, new types of investment, not just in manufacturing, but in all sectors, logistics 4.0, healthcare 4.0, obviously industry, I think those opportunities will be immense. And Cambodia will be able to position itself quite well and take advantage of all that. As I said, we've taken a first step. We've definitely taken the risk, a forward-looking approach, but it addresses what global manufacturing, global investment is looking for. And now with, we'll say, the 3 new normals of a post-COVID era, we're all going to have to deal with that situation of the 3 new normals sooner than later. So at least I think this is the right time to be making these types of conversations and looking to how do we move forward together, government, private sector, academia.
Brilliant.
I'm always happy to discuss, and you can get our contacts anywhere, and happy to discuss, come out and see our cluster anytime. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you, Charles. We've got 30 seconds remaining. Hiroshi, do you have any final comment?
Thank you. With new investment law, I feel that the Cambodian government wants more, high value added and quality investment, especially manufacturers from Japan. So as a Japanese, we try to work hard to attract more quality Japanese manufacturers to Cambodia. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to the panelists and the audience for joining today. This is the end of the event. Really appreciate everyone's input in terms of questions and all of the panelists for their time. Have a good remainder to the week. Everyone keep safe in this current unusual period that we're in. Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Okay. Thank you.